Davis and Michel Barnier today shook hands and declared they have made a decisive step in sealing a Brexit transition deal. The EU chief negotiator and Mr. Davis announced the dramatic breakthrough at a press conference in Brussels. Under the terms, the transition period will end in December 2020, while the UK has also given ground on free movement rights and fishing quota rules. However, Britain will be free to negotiate and sign trade agreements after the formal exit date next March. Gibraltar was also explicitly included in the scope of the deal.The hard package is now set to be signed off by EU leaders at a summit later this week. However, Mr. Barnier stressed there are still difficult arguments about the Irish border to come. And there was an immediate backlash on some of the concessions, with Scottish fishing industry angry that EU quotas for using our waters will still apply. Mr. Barnier said, "A decisive step remains a step.We. We are not at the end of the road, and there is a lot of work still to be done on important subjects including Ireland and Northern Ireland." But this decisive step will be presented by me on Friday. Mr. Davis said the settlement gave certainty to businesses in the UK and the EU. The deal we struck today should give us confidence that a deal good for the United Kingdom and the EU is closer than ever before, he said. The pound rose sharply against the US dollar, and the euro as the apparent breakthrough was unveiled. Theresa May hailed the agreement, saying it proved doubters wrong and showed that a good trade deal was possible. Among the details in the blueprint unveiled by a clearly relieved Mr. Davis and Mr. Barnier were: Mr. Barnier reiterated the importance of the backstop on the Irish border that was agreed by Mrs. May before Christmas. That deal meant, if no other solution could be found, the UK would agree to align closely enough with EU rules to avoid a hard border. The UK has angrily dismissed a legal text prepared by Brussels setting out the backstop arrangement, saying it would effectively rip up the UK. Outlining the deal today, Mr. Barnier said, the UK will no longer participate in the European Union decision-making processes, simply because after the 30 March 2019 it will no longer be a member state. The UK will preserve all the benefits and advantages of the single market, customs union and European policies, and will, therefore, be required to respect all the European rules just like member states. EU nationals arriving in the transition period will have the same rights as those arriving before, he added. Mr. Davis said, the United Kingdom will be able to step out, sign and ratify new trade deals with old friends and new allies for the first time in more than 40 years. These will come into force when the implementation period ends, providing new opportunities for businesses across the UK and seizing one of Brexit's greatest opportunities. We have agreed those international agreements arising from our EU membership continue to apply as they do now. Businesses can be confident there will be no disruption to existing trade relationships when we leave the EU. Mr. Davis said the UK remained committed to the divorce deal agreed before Christmas, including the provisions on the Irish border. But he said he believed the wider trade deal could be so close that no additional measures would be needed to guarantee a soft border. In a victory for the British side, the scope of the transition explicitly includes Gibraltar. There have been fears that Spain could try to use its veto over Brexit to reopen the issue of the ROC's sovereignty. Mr. Davis said, "Yes, it includes Gibraltar. That is our view of it. We are having negotiations, very constructive discussions with Spain. They will continue." Mr. Barnier said Gibraltar would leave the EU at the same time as the UK and said it was included in the territorial scope of the legal text. But he added that Spain had been granted a specific veto on the Gibraltar issue and would still need to approve the terms. Mrs. May said, "I think the message people can take from this is that prior to December people questioned whether we would get agreement then. We did. People questioned whether we would get agreement now. We have. I think what this shows is that with goodwill on both sides, working hard, we can get an arrangement for the future which will be in the interests of the UK and in the interests of the European Union, and it will be good for all parts of the UK." CBI Director General Carolyn Fairbairn said the agreement brought a welcome gift of time for firms in the UK and the EU. Agreeing transition is a critical milestone that will provide many hundreds of businesses with the confidence to put their contingency planning on hold and keep investing in the UK, she said. While some sectors may need more than 20 months to prepare for post-Brexit life, this is a victory for common sense that will help protect living standards, jobs, and growth. The Scottish Fishermen's Federation Chief Executive Bertie Armstrong said the terms fell far short of an acceptable deal. "We will leave the EU and leave the CFP, Common Fisheries Policy, but hand back sovereignty over our seas a few seconds later,"